Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, how are you?
Good. Yeah. All right. Thank you. Nice to see
Good.
you.
Nice to see you too. I'm just gonna try and get this on my tripod stand so I can. Yeah, I'm a bit
Don't
off
have to be doing that.
from work.
Sure.
No, it's okay. I'll hold it.
No worries. Just going to turn you up a little bit. So cool. Well, welcome to our chat, and welcome to people that are watching. This week we're going to have a chat with Sinead AKA Premaura. And we're going to talk about how you've been involved with Launchpad and what that's been like, and just a general little chat about support for Yorkshire artists. So do you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself and what kind of artist you are, what you do?
Sure, indeed. So I am I suppose, pop artist ultimately, and I kind of use synth pop with R&B vibes, and I've been going now for a few years. Premauras has been going just over 2 years. So, I started out in the industry under my actual name and then decided to rebrand. Because as I kind of went along, I started to learn, actually, this is my style, this is where I want to be, and just how important branding is, to an artist. So, yeah, I decided it was better to have a rebrand for me personally. So then Premaura was born, and she was actually born at a festival because I was thinking of a name, and I was actually at a 5 rhythms kind of style dance, actually. And we're all dancing in kind of in a meditative state, and then the name kind of came, and it was very spiritual.
Wow. What does Premaura mean? I don't actually know. I don't think.
So it's a mix of things, really. I suppose because I'm into kind of the spiritual stuff.
Yeah.
It's kind of from the word aura,
Yeah.
which is our energy aura, because I'm into energy work and meditation, and Preloma, which is the Gnostic meaning of divine totality. So I wanted something that was kind of made up, so like merging words together. And I'm also into gematria, which is kind of the mathematics behind words and the effect it has when you say something. So I worked out what it meant in gematria, and it means 93, which means to go in love and receive love.
Wow, that's incredible. Oh, I'm going to have to look into that gematria. That sounds so interesting. That's really cool. Really cool. Yeah, so I mean, we're kind of here just to spread the word a little bit about Launchpad and talk to different. We've been talking to different artists over the last few weeks. We now actually have a round of Launchpad open, so we're here to encourage people to get involved. And we always think it helps to actually hear it from artists, to actually say what the experience has been like, and offer a little bit of insight into what kind of support you're looking for, and then how it's gone and that sort of thing. So yeah, it'd be really good just to have a little chat about what maybe what the support was that you applied for, like what were you planning to do, and what was it that you received?
I basically was hoping to get mentoring, and that's what I received. So it's been wonderful. And yeah, and also the recording support. So I was basically, as an artist, I'm open to what help I can get, really, because as an independent artist,
Yeah, of course.
it's tough at times, and there's lots to navigate as an independent artist. So it's always nice to get input from others and, help along the way. So, both ends of the scale, from the mentoring and the advice I've received, that's been really, really beneficial for me. And also at the other end with the recording support, because I also finance all my music myself. And because I'm also a soloist, it's expensive. I don't have a band to share out the cost with either, so it can definitely add up in terms of costs. And so, I suppose having that recording support has been amazing as well for me.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, especially because the kind of stage that most artists are at that are getting involved with Launchpad is that kind of early stage. You don't yet have a team around you, or potentially not likely to be working with a label or anything like that. So actually, this is why Launchpad is here, to try and help like empower artists to get to that next step. And I think, you know, it's really important to hear, you know, your perspective as well. I guess I think it's probably useful to tell people what stage you were at when you applied and what you had in mind. Like, had you done any releases? What kind of gigs have you done? That sort of thing.
Yeah, so I actually applied the previous year, and the previous year I didn't get mentoring or funding support for my music, but I received live opportunities
the year prior.
So that was really good because it just allowed me to get out and get live opportunities that I, you know, probably wouldn't otherwise have got. So, you know, I got to, which is one of my favourite gigs to date, really. I got to perform at Pub in the Park Festival and open up before like Basement Jaxx, which was absolutely amazing. And it was the first time that I'd performed on such a big stage as well. So that whole experience was invaluable, really. And then the following year, I applied again, and by that point, you know, I'd already released an EP. I'd rebranded. So by that point in my career, I feel like I already had a good sense of who I was as an artist. I had a few releases already under my belt, and you know, in my application, I was quite clear on that. You know, I want this support to help me start to level up, really, and mentoring would be great because it'd be wonderful to be paired with the right people that can help me kind of focus my energy and you know, focus on how I can get those next lot of doors open, really, for me as an artist.
Yeah, definitely. And to like help you understand what it is that maybe you feel like you're missing a little bit. And it's, you know, and you probably did, I'm sure you probably did this in the application, but like identifying where it is that you might be sort of lacking in either experience or information, and being able to say like, well, I feel like I'm really strong or confident with these parts of what I'm doing, but actually this and this is a bit challenging, and finding that information. So identifying, you know, what it is that you need help with is a really important thing to be able to stand back and do as an artist, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I'm always open. Like, it's one thing as an artist for me personally that I found really useful along the journey is just to be open for feedback as well, you know, not too rigid in things. Yes, it's good to have, you know, your vision and a clear idea of your values and who you want to be, but also when you get too set in your ways, it's not always a good thing. So to be open to that mentoring and allowing in feedback, you know, and if something seems like constructive criticism, it can be a really good thing. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, I'm always really open to feedback, and I think it's a good thing to be able to do as an artist, and not take things personally, you know, and also just understanding that everyone's taste is different as well, you know, and a different pair of eyes and a different pair of ears may just open you up to another world. Do you know what I mean? So
because like, each person is coming from a different perspective, aren't they? So actually, if you've got somebody that you're sort of paired with for some advice, and they're coming from a PR background, and someone else that's more like a label person or a manager, you're going to have those differences, aren't you, in how that reflects on who you are as an artist and what it is you need to find out.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And did you find that you had some like practical advice, or was it more creative, or, you know, what sort of things have you actually been dealing with as part of your advice?
It's been a bit of both, really. The good thing is as well on this round, because I've still got my last mentoring session to go, so I'm still amidst the process, and we've actually kind of been given feedback on the music too. So very practical, really, I suppose, because, you know, we've been discussing kind of where the music's going as well, and could I play with different influences, and introduce maybe, you know, slightly new genres, you know, within who I am. But it's been really exciting just to explore and get some feedback on my music, and where could we potentially see this going, and what do we feel that needs to happen to this sound to maybe just level it up a little bit, you know. And if, for example, we want to look at being played on, let's say, a national radio, what do we feel needs to happen to this sound to get it to that, you know, and what do I need to kind of focus on doing? And that's been really useful.
Yeah, and what are some of the practical steps to actually get there? Like, how do you get your music online, or in, and who are the connections that it's like, how how do you get music on radio? Like some of those things where actually as a new artist, it's very difficult to, like you said earlier, to navigate your way through if you're not quite sure, or especially if you're a solo artist and you don't have a little group of you that are all looking into things or talking to different people.
Yeah.
So it feels like that kind of, but it's really nice to hear that you've had some kind of like creative support as well as the practical, because I know, a lot of the sessions we do with artists can be around anything from how to release music to how to promote it to creating an aesthetic identity as a band or an artist, and there's a lot of different things to cover. So it does feel very much like it's identifying from our perspective and an artist's perspective what it is you need to develop and what you need to work on. So did you find that was quite a natural process for you to kind of find out, or even while you were applying, to know what you wanted to focus on, and then when you came to start doing it, did it feel quite natural?
Yeah, definitely. And it's nice to, like I say, have the different ears on the track, and also just discussing the production. It's like, for me, yes, there's getting your vocals down and good songwriting, and all that side, but also like, do we feel we need to look at maybe who's mixing it and try that differently next time? And this time I'm going to be working with the guys at Greenmount Studio on this EP. I'm really excited because, looking at some of the stuff they're putting out at the minute, they're getting some Radio 1 play and Radio 6, and it's great. And I'm really excited just to see the difference in just that mixing stage makes. I feel, for me, especially for my genre, that can make or break a song. So I'm super excited just to work with someone new in the production side of things. And I knew for this set of releases that I wanted to try something different, when it comes to mixing and mastering, and just try and switch it up a little bit there as well.
So when it comes to the recording support you're getting, had you already written some of the music, and has it been going towards actually like recording, or have you already recorded and then it's more towards the mixing? Because I know we're quite fluid with what people can be supported on in terms of recording, and it can actually be video stuff, it can be live sessions and things like that. But it'd be interesting to hear like where you were at when you sort of started doing it, if you had music already or how you've gone about it.
So I had none of the new music written. So it was been great actually, because I split my mentoring sessions out across quite a broad period of time, really. And so when we started with the mentoring, it was like, you haven't started writing yet, what should we look at? And then I started the writing process. Then we checked in a few weeks later, and it was nice because it worked perfectly for me. And now I'm at the point where I'm about to record. I'm starting recording this Sunday. Literally.
Amazing.
Over the next few weeks, it should be finished. And the bulk of my recording support will be going into mixing and working with the guys over at Greenmount. And it's great. And I'll probably check in again just towards the end of that process. And we'll just kind of look at maybe that release plan and kind of getting a timeline and a strategy together.
Yes.
And
do you think
I've had a bit of extra support as well around that, my PR kit, and just to make sure that's all in check as well. So it's really exciting.
So do you think that, in the way that you've done it as well, with saying you've kind of spread out the mentoring and advice sessions, and again, we're pretty flexible from our end of who is paired up and how that kind of looks for each individual or band. And, it feels like that actually has a bit of accountability, so that when you're going through some sort of process and your aims are to either release a new EP or put out 3 singles or whatever the plan is that you're coming to us with, did you feel like it's kind of driven you forward and like kind of made you feel like you want to hit those little targets and things, made it a bit more like a more organized thing, basically?
Yeah, definitely, 100%. And if anything, I needed that at the start of this year. I struggled this year to get going. I'd had a bit of a tough end to 2020. I mean, the whole year of a wash off, wasn't it? But yeah, definitely had a tough end to the year, and I had a bit of writer's block as well, and I just couldn't motivate myself. I knew that I wanted, you know, to pick things up for summer and get some new material out, but it did help me to get it going. And then all of a sudden I was like, right, I've got my next mentoring session, like they want to hear some demos, and I got them together, and yes, it you know, it held me accountable. And I think that's something I now know that I definitely am missing, although I've never had it. So it's kind of like, but I know that as the team does grow, that will be good for me to have people to hold me accountable and give me deadlines, because as an independent, that can be hard sometimes. Just
and as a creative, it's a difficult thing, isn't it, to, you know, and it's, we talk about it a lot as a team here as well, and that idea of like where the balance is in terms of creating, and also the side of it that you do need to be aware of, which is like the business side or the PR side or the social media and marketing. Like it'd be very nice if we could just all focus as artists just on being an artist, but actually, especially as, you know, maybe later on that's not going to be too much of an issue if there's a team, but actually being able to move your career or journey forwards is so valuable, isn't it? And actually having those tools to do that, you know, it's what we're obviously here to try and help everybody with. It feels really important.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I've always struggled a bit more with the admin side of things. But, you know, I think I've gone along with my journey. I've just had to come to acceptance that it's part and parcel of it, you know, especially when you're at the earlier stages of your career. And it's like, well, I could dwell on it and get stressed over it, or I could just set time aside and get it done. So, you know, there's a point when I have to just be strict with myself, you know.
That was a very Yorkshire thing to say. I really like that. Just get on with it.
Yeah.
It's so true though, isn't it? And you know, and I think we were talking, me and Ash from our team were talking about it the other day, about actually if you can make everything you do slightly creative, it can feel more appealing to do. So, you know, you make your press kit or you're doing some social media, and instead of being like, oh, I'm doing marketing, just be like, I'm having a conversation with people, or I'm getting to put up some fun photos, or I'm, you know, singing and performing live on Instagram or whatever it is. And I think if there's ways to make that fun and creative, that's even better, isn't it?
Yeah. And for me, something that's really helped me, because I had to go through a whole process around sharing. Like I had a whole block there around marketing my music, and I'm thinking to myself, gosh, Sinead, like you're really in the wrong line of career if you can't get over this. And I think I had a block. I had to delve in. This is where my mindfulness stuff comes in, but it's very useful to know there was a block there around showing off, or feeling like sharing my music was somehow showing off. And I'm thinking to myself, this is a really limiting belief, and it's something I need to work around. And where does it stem from? So I kind of, you know, went in and did the inner healing and figured out where these beliefs were coming from. And then because I identified that that was the case, and it was sabotaging me and subconsciously blocking me from wanting to really shout about my releases when that time came around, because what I was doing was I was putting stuff out and then almost walking away from it. It was like a weird subconscious block that I had going on. And so when I could really get honest with myself, I could heal that and then start to implant new belief systems around sharing my work, and that actually you're not showing off, you're just being shiny, and you've made this work and you're telling people about it. So looking at it in that way, and as it really is, you're just sharing this creative gift you've created, you know. And so when I've reframed my beliefs in a more positive way and actually got really honest with myself about where I was self-sabotaging, it was great. And that's only been, I wouldn't say recent thing, but I say in the last year and a half, I've really been working through that stuff. And, you know, I'm really excited to kind of have this next release, having known I've worked through those limiting beliefs as well, because I think it's almost like the unsaid thing as well. Like I think in the creative industries, a lot of us struggle with similar things, but a lot of the masterclasses don't go into this kind of stuff and these kind of blocks that a lot of us are faced with, or imposter syndrome, or do you know what I mean? It's like
massively.
It's stuff we have to face and work through. Otherwise, it'll kind of be the downfall, or maybe what causes us eventually to stop, or you know,
definitely. And that's why it's so important to have this kind of community, and, you know, especially through the Launchpad network, and more, you know, working with more and more artists and artists being able to talk to each other and all of that kind of stuff, like these kind of, you know, these kind of themes that are coming up, I guess, like you said, imposter syndrome, that's something I was going to mention, and confidence and things like that, and like you say, retraining your brain to be like, well, actually people are going to get enjoyment from this, and technically it's also a product if you want to think of it in that sense.
It's an energy exchange as well.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, it's not something to feel like, oh, this is just for me and I'm showing off, but there is, you know, there is all this other stuff, and there's lots of different beliefs that I think a lot of us have as artists that aren't very helpful, and it's difficult. Yeah, it's difficult to overcome that. And so I think wherever we can get support, and we can give support as Launchpads, is just, you know, really helpful for everybody. And to be able to talk about it like this is also really, really useful to people. Just to try and improve music generally for all of us to be working in as well.
I think like the mental health side of things is a real journey as well with music, you know.
Yeah.
So it's important to talk about, and, you know, I think something that I'd like to do more of going forward is just sharing more and being real, and, you know, and just saying what's there underneath things, and because I think it will help others, you know.
And also that
things
exactly, and that comes across as an artist if you can look at these things and look at your values and look at where your passions are, and incorporate it not just actually into the music, but in terms of like your kind of output as an artist, whether it's on socials or whatever, and having these conversations, and you know, talking about what it is you're passionate about and sharing things. I think we can all do, you know, more with that, and actually it helps connect with people, and that's really what music making's about, isn't it? It's connecting with others and sharing art and sharing music, and so actually it's all part of it, rather than just having this shiny finished product, and actually, like, you know, having these kind of dialogues and things is really useful, and how you choose to incorporate that into your plan or your marketing or your aesthetic or whatever it is really important.
It really is. And, you know, and I know it gets thrown around quite a lot, but enjoying the journey, because, you know, there's never just an end point. There will never be that point where you get there. So you just need to learn to be with the journey. You need to learn to be with the uncertainty, the ebbs and the flows. And again, that's a journey in itself, you know, getting to be okay with that. And again, like, that's only something I've managed to, I'd say, do. There's still days when it's harder, but do in the last, I'd say, year and a half. And that's taken some real inner work. And I will definitely be, you know, flying the flag for any creatives really focusing on their inner world, you know, and just reminding people that it's not that end point you're going to get to where you're going to have satisfaction, let's say, or pleasure from that, you know. What we need to be looking for is contentment. Yeah. And you find that along the journey, and being in the present and being happy with where you're at.
Yeah. And that does include trying to do that with all aspects of your musicality, and, you know, like you said, in the admin, it's just like, just get on with it, but try and make it part of something that you enjoy. And I know I found that myself, sometimes I can get really bogged down with admin, but often when I'm doing it for my own band, I'm like, but this is moving the band forward, and that's really, you know, in itself, even thinking that is exciting, even if you're doing the same spreadsheet, or you're doing loads of emails or whatever, or you're communicating with people, and it's like, oh, I'm still engaging with people, and it's all like positive stuff towards you as an artist and your journey. So I think that's a really good point.
Yeah.
It's also, I guess with things like trying to get support, it's something we've mentioned on some of these conversations before, is actually the process of applying and how you look at yourself as an artist, because obviously you've got to write a bio and that sort of thing, and look at your experience and where you're at. But in terms of making a plan and learning how to like plan what it is you want to do and get that across to a funder or someone like us who's offering support. So how did you find that process of actually like looking at what you were doing and what you were planning and putting it down? Well, we now do video and audio applications as well as written, but how did you kind of get that down, or how did you find that process?
I think for me, that's just come over time with editing and then going back and looking at it again and editing it again. But
yeah, sure.
yeah, just kind of not being afraid to ask for help, I suppose. Like, you know, if you know other people who are in a band or friends, maybe I've been like, can I look at your press kit? You know, just ask as well. Like, I think sometimes we're too scared to ask people, and like half the time, like people are more generous than what you'd think. Yeah. So, you know, I've had a look at other people's press kit and gone, okay, how are they approaching it? How can I apply that to mine? And then just looking at, okay, what do people want to see on there? Obviously, your experience that you've had, what your sound is obviously a clear one. If you've got any influences, and then, you know, what you plan on doing, what you've got coming up, a nice, good professional photo on there. And yeah, like obviously if you've got music out, then any links to your music. So just thinking about, okay, if I was at the other end, what would I want to see on there? Yeah. You know, and then maybe just send it around to a few people as well, like ask, you know, some trustworthy friends or family just to have a look over it for you and give some honest feedback.
Yeah, I think that's, you know, it's so valuable to ask for help. And it's another thing, like you mentioned earlier, that sometimes I think there's a sense that you have to do everything for yourself as an artist, and actually there are people out there that are willing to help. And usually most people that are working in the creative sector and music sector, even if they're busy people, you know, most of us are open to a quick chat or a message or an email or a conversation, or like in a venue at some point, like an actual real life conversation.
That's it. And you know what? I think, like, be a bit cheeky as well. Like, I'm from Yorkshire now, but I was going to say, if you don't ask, you don't get. Like, so true. And like, literally, I would say, like, be cheeky. Like, literally, if you need to, like, if you're at a networking event, print out your press kit and bring it with you. Like, literally shove it in people's face and get them to have a look. But I think as well, especially if you want in a commercial career, be a bit bold sometimes, and you know, people will remember you too. And I don't mean bold as in not polite. Obviously be polite, be nice, but you know, there's nothing wrong with, I don't know, being a bit fun and standing out and doing something that people probably wouldn't do nowadays. And I think there's a lot to be said, once we're allowed to, turning up to places in person and events. And because so many people email, blah, 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 blah. Like, how can you stand out nowadays? Well, you know, maybe turn up at that office of the person you want to speak to, see if they've got a spare 5 minutes, and you know.
But before you've done that, make sure you've got all your stuff in order, like your online things or your press kit or your Instagram. You know, that you've at least got like
I bet if
your tag handles.
Don't tell them to turn up at the office, Sinead. Turn up at no. It's like the worst advice ever.
You never know. You've got to try all sorts in the music industry, haven't you? And I think it's really important to reach out to people, definitely, in whatever way that you think is appropriate.
That's it. I got a bit excited there, to be fair, so maybe I'll backtrack on that. Don't say the Launchpad's office. You'll be like, God damn you, Premaura.
Although saying that, we do have drop-in advice sessions for people that aren't aware. We do have. At the moment, obviously, they're online, but they were in our office, and they probably will be again very soon. So there will be an opportunity to do that that is a bit more like booked in. But so it's really important to talk to people and just learn from the experience of going through these things. And also, I think it's important to say that if you aren't successful, just try again on the next round. Just move a bit further on in what you're doing and make it a little bit better and a bit tighter, or get your plan a bit better.
And that's something, like, you can't in music be put off at the first hurdle.
No.
Like, so, I mean, there's countless stories out there, isn't there, of people that have been, you know, turned back and they've ended up being huge, you know? Yeah. So countless stories of that. And it's kind of like, you need to take rejection it's just a signal that something needs to shift or change or evolve. So think about it, look at it again, and go back again. Exactly. And that's the attitude you need to have in the music industry, like, you know.
And it's all just room for development, isn't it? Even if you're just going through the process of reapplying for something, actually that's part of your development as an artist as well. So we want to encourage that. Don't want anyone to feel put off if they haven't got through and that sort of thing, because there are And there also are different opportunities, because it does depend on what stage you're at as an artist. It might just be a little too soon, or actually you might be beyond what we're offering, and it might be more like PRS Foundation or Arts Council or help musicians that is more suitable. So there's lots of different things to consider, and obviously it can be a little bit complex, but hopefully conversations like this are useful for people to help figure out for themselves as well. But just before we say bye, I'll remind everyone that we do have a deadline coming up, 17th of May, for our next Launchpad round, which you can check out on our website, launchpad-music.com. And feel free to get in touch. We've got a contact form on there, and our email address and everything's on the website. So yeah, just ask questions and get in touch and reach out, and good luck with the applications. So thank you so much for chatting to us, Sinead. It's been amazing. Yeah, it's been a really lovely evening of having a chat about music. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too. See you soon then. Bye.